Okay, so we've all been there, right?
Hmm.
Someone says next Friday, and it turns into a total scheduling disaster.
Oh, yeah.
Like you're thinking one Friday, they mean another, and suddenly you've got missed deadlines, missed opportunities, the whole 9 yards.
It's amazing how something as basic as time, can become this communication minefield.
Totally. And that's exactly what we're deep diving into today.
Hmm.
How to become a total time communication master, especially in this globalized business world we're all navigating.
Right, and the source material for this deep dive is packed with real-world examples of these kinds of mishaps.
Oh, for sure.
We've got everything from botched product launches to those painfully early international calls because someone totally spaced on the whole time zone thing.
Tell me about it. The dreaded morning meeting trap.
Yes.
I'm getting flashbacks just thinking about it.
Yeah.
But you know what I appreciate about these sources? They go way beyond just the surface level stuff. They dig into the nitty-gritty of setting deadlines across continents, figuring out how to master the follow-up without being a total pest, and even the super cool concept of leading time-based projects like a conductor.
Yeah, that conductor analogy is so spot on.
Right.
It's really about orchestrating everyone's efforts to create, a harmonious symphony of productivity, making sure everyone's in sync and hitting those critical milestones.
Totally. And the best part, this isn't just about avoiding disaster. It's about leveling up your entire career.
Oh, for sure.
The sources really emphasize how mastering time communication, it shows off your organizational skills, cultural sensitivity, even leadership abilities.
Definitely. Those are the kind of qualities that, really resonate with the higher-ups. It signals you're not just task-focused, but also, relationship-focused and globally aware.
Exactly. So let's jump into the first layer of this time communication mastery. Our sources kick things off with this deep dive into discussing schedules and deadlines.
Yeah.
With both clarity and cultural sensitivity.
And that's where the timeline translation technique comes in. It's not just about converting dates and times, but about shifting the entire team's mindset around how they even talk about time.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What exactly does that look like in practice?
Well, the source material breaks it down really nicely.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that some cultures are incredibly deadline driven, while others prioritize, flexibility and relationship building.
That's so true. So then how do you even bridge that gap? Do you avoid hard deadlines altogether in certain cultures?
Not necessarily. It's more about adapting the language you use to frame those deadlines.
I see.
For instance, instead of saying this report is due on the 15th, you might say, we're aiming to have this report finalized by the 15th, so we have plenty of time to review it together before sharing it with the client.
Okay, yeah, I see the difference. It's subtler, but it implies more ownership and collaboration.
Exactly. And the sources provide a ton of specific phrases like this, tailored to different cultural contexts. So really a fascinating blend of linguistics and cultural awareness.
This is gold, Ike. And for anyone
Yeah.
working with international teams, it's like having a cheat sheet for avoiding those cross-cultural communication blunders.
Totally. And it's not just about avoiding blunders. It's about maximizing your team's effectiveness by leveraging those cultural nuances.
So true. Okay, so we've set those culturally sensitive deadlines. Now, how do we stay on top of things without becoming that annoying project manager who sends daily just checking in emails?
Yes, the art of the follow-up.
Right.
It's a delicate dance, but our sources have some brilliant strategies for finding that sweet spot between, accountability and respect. They actually advise moving away from checking in altogether.
Wait, really? But how do you ensure things are progressing without any check-ins?
It's about reframing those interactions as alignment check-ins, which subtly shifts the focus from, individual accountability to shared progress toward a common goal.
Okay, yeah, I'm starting to see how powerful this language shift can be.
Right.
It's you're inviting people to collaborate on keeping things on track rather than making them feel like they're constantly being monitored.
Exactly. And the sources provide a ton of specific examples. Instead of saying, per my last email, can you provide an update? You might say, to ensure we're all on the same page for next week's client presentation, could you share a quick update on where things stand with specific task?
It's so much better. It gently reminds everyone of the bigger picture and why staying on schedule is important.
Yeah.
No one feels singled out or micromanaged.
It's all about creating that sense of shared purpose and ownership, It's amazing how These subtle language tweaks can have such a profound impact on team dynamics.
Seriously, this is already such a game changer. I can't wait to put these strategies into practice. Okay, so we've covered setting culturally sensitive deadlines and mastering the art of the follow-up. But what about when things, inevitably go off track? How do you communicate urgency without sending everyone into like a panicked frenzy?
That's where the language of urgency comes in. Our sources dedicate an entire section to this, and it's packed with practical advice on how to, get your point across without resorting to all caps emails and like frantic phone calls.
Okay, I'm definitely guilty of the occasional all caps email in a moment of panic. What's the alternative?
Well, the key is to use clear and specific language that, conveys the time-sensitive nature of the task without resorting to, like, alarmist language. Instead of shouting ASP, you might say, this impacts our 2 p.m. client deliverable, so let's prioritize it accordingly.
Wow, that's so much more effective. It gives people a concrete reason to take action.
Right.
And it subtly emphasizes like the potential consequences of any delays without causing, unnecessary stress.
Exactly. And the sources dive even deeper into this, introducing the concept of priority positioning language.
Okay, that sounds interesting. What exactly is priority positioning language?
It's about using language to, strategically frame tasks based on their level of urgency and impact on the overall project. For instance, instead of saying, we need to get this done ASP, you might say, this task is critical for meeting our client's deadline next week, so let's prioritize it ahead of other tasks.
I see how that works. It's about providing context and clarity without resorting to those vague cries for help that often just get lost in the noise.
Precisely. And the sources provide a ton of specific examples and phrasing suggestions, so you can tailor your communication to different situations and personalities.
This is gold. I feel like I'm already becoming a more strategic communicator just by listening to this.
It's the power of language. But we're just getting started. There's a whole other layer of complexity when it comes to time communication in the world of remote work, which we'll explore in part 2 of our deep dive.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat. Remote work is definitely where my time communication skills get put to the test. Stay tuned, everyone, because in part 2, we'll be tackling the asynchronous communication dance and other fascinating concepts from our sources.
All right, so welcome back to our deep dive into mastering time communication.
Yeah, we're really diving even deeper into the nuances of this critical skill, right?
Really?
Last time we unpacked setting deadlines across cultures, mastering the follow-up, and communicating urgency effectively.
We even touched on the idea of leading projects like a conductor, orchestrating efforts across, all those time zones.
Right. But today, I'm super excited to explore something that really jumped out from our sources.
Oh, yeah.
How different cultures perceive and value time.
Ooh, yeah, this is where things get really interesting. Yeah. We can't just assume that everyone operates on the same internal clock, right?
Totally. With a minor delay to one person can be a major offense to another.
For sure.
Our sources had this great example comparing Germany, where punctuality is paramount, to Brazil, where things are a bit more fluid.
Yeah.
It's like they're speaking different time languages.
Exactly. And if you're not fluent in those subtle differences, it can lead to miscommunication, missed deadlines, even, damaged relationships.
Totally. So how do we become fluent in these different time languages without turning into cultural anthropologists?
Well, the source material offers a few practical strategies.
Okay.
First, it emphasizes the importance of, research. Luckily, we live in an age where information is so readily available.
Yeah, for sure.
So before you jump into a project with a global team, spend some time learning about, their cultural norms around.
Are they deadline driven, relationship focused, all that good stuff?
Precisely. Even a little bit of research can go a long way in preventing, major faux pas.
Right.
But beyond the initial research, it's also about, being observant and adaptable throughout the project.
Okay, so we're constantly fine-tuning our communication based on the cues we're picking up from our colleagues.
Exactly. Pay attention to how they phrase deadlines, how they respond to requests, even their, general tone and demeanor when discussing time-sensitive matters.
It's we're learning a new dance, adapting our steps to match our partner's rhythm.
I love that analogy. Yeah, it's a constant, back and forth, a subtle negotiation to find that shared understanding of how time operates within that, specific project context.
So it's not about memorizing a rigid set of rules, but rather developing like a sensitivity to those unspoken expectations around time.
Exactly. And this leads to the next strategy, being explicit in our communication. Instead of like assuming that everyone interprets phrases like ASA or end of day the same way, we need to clarify up front.
Okay, so instead of saying, let's meet soon, we'd say, I'm available Tuesday afternoon, your time. Would that work for a quick call?
Perfect example. It removes, ambiguity and demonstrates respect for everyone's time.
Yeah.
No more guessing games or like scrambling to decipher cryptic emails.
This is such a relief. I've definitely been on the receiving end of those, vague emails.
Yeah,
And it creates so much unnecessary stress and confusion.
totally. It's all about setting those, clear expectations from the start, which leads to like smoother collaboration and greater peace of mind for everyone involved.
Totally. Okay, so we're researching cultural norms, being explicit in our communication. Are there any other secrets to mastering this, like cross-cultural time dance?
Well, the source material highlights the importance of mirroring.
Mirroring.
Yeah, observe how your colleagues communicate about time and try to adapt your style accordingly.
So if they're like very formal and precise in their language, we should mirror that formality. But if they're more, casual and flexible, we can adjust our tone as well.
Exactly. It's not about becoming a chameleon, but rather showing respect and building rapport by like aligning with their communication style.
So like speaking their language.
Yes, not just literally, but also, metaphorically.
I see.
It shows you're paying attention, you're making an effort to, understand their perspective, and you're committed to creating that like harmonious working relationship.
Honestly, this is making me realize how much I've been operating on like autopilot when it comes to time communication.
Oh, yeah.
I've been so focused on, just getting things done that I've kind of neglected the human element.
That's a common trap, especially in, today's fast-paced business world.
Right.
But by incorporating these strategies, we can transform time communication from like a potential source of stress into a powerful tool for building stronger relationships and achieving greater success.
I love that. Okay, so we've explored how to be more culturally sensitive in our time communication. But what about when we need to like ramp up the urgency without causing undue stress?
That's where the source material's language of urgency techniques come in.
Right.
Remember, it's not about shouting fire, but rather strategically framing the situation to elicit, a calm but decisive response.
So we talked about using like specific language like this impacts our 2 p.m. client deliverable instead of just ASAP.
Yeah.
But what are some other, techniques?
Well, they introduced the concept of time impact statements, which basically explain the potential consequences of not meeting the deadline.
Oh.
So instead of saying, we need this report finished by Friday, you might say, if we don't finalize this report by Friday, we risk delaying the entire product launch.
Oh, that makes sense.
It like highlights the stakes without resorting to, that alarmist language. It helps people understand why this deadline matters, encouraging them to, prioritize accordingly.
It's like we're not just barking orders, but providing context and rationale, which is like way more motivating and effective.
Exactly. And it empowers people to, make informed decisions about how they allocate their time and resources.
This is so helpful. But what about when like multiple urgent requests collide? How do we prioritize without causing, overwhelm and burnout?
Well, the source material offers this brilliant framework called the urgency hierarchy.
Okay.
It's about categorizing urgent requests based on, their impact and deadline.
So like a task due tomorrow that impacts a major client presentation would, trump a task due next week with a less significant impact.
Precisely. But it goes beyond just like individual tasks. It encourages us to think about the overall project goals and, strategically allocate resources accordingly.
So instead of just reacting to every like urgent request that pops up, we're proactively managing the flow of work to ensure that the most critical tasks are, completed on time.
Exactly. It's about becoming a master conductor, not just like frantically waving our baton, but strategically guiding the orchestra to create that, harmonious and impactful performance.
Wow. This is taking time communication to a whole new level. But in today's world, we can't talk about time without addressing like the elephant in the room. remote work.
Oh, yes, the world of virtual teams and time zones.
Oh, yeah.
This is where time communication gets even trickier.
For sure.
But thankfully, our sources are overflowing with strategies for what they call mastering virtual time communication.
Okay, I'm all ears. This is where I, personally struggle the most. It's like trying to herd cats across different continents.
I hear you. But with the right, mindset and tools, it can be done effectively.
Yep.
The first key concept they highlight is the asynchronous communication dance.
Asynchronous communication dance.
Yes.
That sounds, intriguing, but a bit intimidating.
Yeah.
Are there, specific steps we need to learn?
It's less about learning specific steps and more about, embracing a new rhythm.
I see.
Remote teams rarely operate in the same time zone, so we need to, let go of the expectation of constant real-time interaction.
Okay, that makes sense, but how do you ensure that everyone's on the same page when they're, literally working on different days?
That's where, clear and concise communication becomes even more crucial.
Uh-huh.
Our sources suggest using time overlap language to bridge those, time zone gaps.
Time overlap language. I'm picturing, those Venn diagrams where the circles slightly overlap.
Yes.
How does that, translate into actual communication?
It's about anchoring your communication to specific times that are relevant to everyone involved. For example, instead of saying, we need this finalized by Friday, which could mean different things in different time zones, you might say, we need this finalized by Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific time.
Oh yeah, that's so much clearer. It eliminates any ambiguity and ensures everyone's working toward the same deadline, regardless of their location.
Exactly. And it demonstrates that you're mindful of everyone's time and working hours.
Right.
It's a small gesture that can make a, big difference in building trust and rapport with those remote colleagues.
Totally. Okay, so we're being mindful of time zones using clear deadlines.
Yeah.
But what about when you need to communicate your own availability, without sounding like you're setting these rigid boundaries? I always feel so awkward about that.
Yes, the delicate art of availability signaling.
Right.
Our sources have some great advice for this.
Okay.
It's about finding that balance between, being accessible and protecting your own time.
Right.
They suggest framing your availability in a more collaborative way.
So instead of saying I'm only available between 9 and 5,
Yeah.
you might say I'm typically online between 9 and 5, but, feel free to reach out anytime and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Exactly. It sets clear expectations without making you sound, unapproachable.
Mm-hmm.
And it reassures people that you're responsive, even if you're not, always immediately available.
Oh, this is such a relief. I always feel bad when I can't respond, right away.
Yeah.
But this gives me a way to acknowledge that without sounding dismissive.
It's all about managing expectations and setting those, healthy boundaries, which is crucial for maintaining that work-life balance, especially in the always-on world of, remote work.
This is making me realize that time communication isn't just about managing schedules and deadlines. It's about managing, relationships and expectations.
Precisely. And in part 3 of our deep dive, we'll explore even more advanced techniques for mastering this art, as well as discuss, some key takeaways and actionable steps you can implement in your own work and life.
Ooh, okay, I can't wait. But for now, we'll take a short break. Stay tuned for the grand finale of our time communication odyssey.
And we're back for, the final act of our time communication deep dive.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey, right? Exploring, all these intricate ways we talk about and manage time.
It really has.
Especially in this crazy globalized business world we're all trying to navigate.
Sure.
But, we've unpacked a ton of insights already, from setting clear deadlines across cultures to mastering the art of the follow-up to even navigating that asynchronous dance of remote work.
But now it's time to shift gears a bit, from exploration to application.
Exactly. We've gathered all this incredible knowledge from our source material.
Right.
But what good is it if it just stays trapped up here, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Today's all about turning those insights into action.
That's where the real magic happens,
Oh.
Knowledge without application is a finely tuned race car just sitting idle in a garage.
Oh, I like that.
All potential, but no movement.
Okay, so let's fire up those engines and hit the road.
Let's do it.
What are some key takeaways from our sources that we can, start implementing right away?
Well, one that really stands out to me is the time communication matrix.
Oh, yeah, I remember them mentioning that, but I'm still a bit fuzzy on, the specifics.
Yeah, so it's this, brilliant framework for integrating all the elements we've discussed into a, more cohesive approach.
Okay.
Think of it as like a master checklist for navigating any time-related communication challenge.
So it's like a roadmap for conquering those tricky time terrains, right? We're not just like wandering around aimlessly anymore. We've got a clear path to follow.
Precisely. Imagine you're, leading a complex project with team members scattered across multiple time zones.
Mm-hmm.
The time communication matrix guides you through each step.
Okay.
From setting those clear expectations and deadlines to communicating updates to handling any time-sensitive issues that, inevitably pop up.
Okay, I'm starting to see how powerful this could be, but can you give us a real-world example of how this matrix works in action?
Absolutely. Let's say you're scheduling, a virtual meeting with colleagues in London, Tokyo, and New York.
Okay, yeah, that's a real-world scenario for sure.
The first step, according to the matrix, is to, consider the context.
So that means factoring in things like the purpose of the meeting, the cultural backgrounds of the participants.
Yes.
And of course, those pesky time zones.
Exactly. Once you've, I got a handle on the context, you move on to step 2. Setting those, clear expectations and deadlines.
Yeah.
This might involve, using those specific time anchors we talked about,
Right.
saying, let's aim to meet on Tuesday at 9 a.m. Pacific time, rather than leaving things open-ended.
That makes perfect sense. It eliminates any room for interpretation and ensures everyone's on the same page, literally, when it comes to scheduling.
Absolutely. And the next step in the matrix, it's all about communication.
Right.
Both the content and, the timing. This is where we can leverage all those powerful techniques we discussed, priority positioning language or those time impact statements.
Yeah.
To, convey urgency without creating unnecessary stress.
Exactly. And of course, we need to be mindful of those cultural nuances we explored earlier, right?
Right.
Adapting our communication style to match the expectations and preferences of our, global colleagues.
And the final piece of the time communication matrix,
Okay.
it emphasizes the importance of, ongoing monitoring and adjustment.
So it's not a set it and forget it system.
No, not
We need to be flexible and responsive, adapting our approach as the, project evolves.
Exactly. So it's about checking in regularly, making sure everyone's still on track, and, tweaking our communication plan as needed to ensure smooth sailing, even when those, unexpected storms arise.
So the time communication matrix, it's all about, proactive and adaptable communication.
Right.
It's about empowering us to lead with confidence and clarity, no matter how complex the project or how, diverse the team.
It really is.
Honestly, this is such a game changer.
Yeah.
It's like having this secret weapon for conquering those time communication challenges that used to leave me feeling, so stressed and overwhelmed.
Oh, for sure. It's a powerful tool, but, as with any tool, its effectiveness ultimately depends on the skill of the user.
Sure.
It's up to us to, take these insights and put them into practice.
Right. We can have all the frameworks and checklists in the world, but if we don't actually use them, they're not going to do us much good.
Exactly. So, I encourage everyone listening to pick one or two of the techniques we've discussed and just, start experimenting with them in your own work.
Yeah, that's a great challenge. It doesn't have to be this massive overhaul, right?
No, not at all.
Even small tweaks can make a big difference.
For sure.
Maybe you start using time anchors in all your meeting invitations, or try incorporating time impact statements into your next urgent request.
Exactly. It's about taking those first steps and gradually building that, time communication muscle.
So it's a journey, not a destination.
Precisely.
And you know what? As we continue on this journey, we not only enhance our own effectiveness, but we also contribute to a more harmonious and productive global business environment.
Beautifully said. It's about creating a world where time isn't a source of stress and conflict, but rather a foundation for collaboration and understanding.
And on that note, we reach the end of our time communication odyssey.
It's been an absolute pleasure exploring this fascinating topic with you and with all our listeners.
Likewise, we hope you've gained some valuable insights and practical strategies that you can use to become, true time communication masters.
Remember, it's not about achieving perfect time management, but about communicating clearly, respectfully, and effectively across, cultures and time zones.
It's about building bridges, not just deadlines.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe as we all get better at this, we'll even find ourselves with a little, extra time to spare.
Now that would be a truly valuable outcome.
It would. So, until next time, may your communication be clear, your deadlines be met, and your time be well spent.